What is your path to Dharma?
Welcome, welcome, dear friends. Shannon and Shay here with Path to Dharma podcast. Thank you so much for your patience with us as Shay made another human. And so, therefore, she's needed a second to stay home and be mommy. She's with me today, but she actually is going off camera. But please stay with us as we get into the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sixth canto. We are on chapter 12 of the sixth canto, Vṛtrāsura's glorious death, which, if you recall, if you were with us on our last episode, we found out Vṛtrāsura was secretly a devotee and was masquerading as a terrible demon, kind
Oh
of.
my gosh, I
And
literally forgot that this is where we were at.
yes, 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 yes. Okay, so Shay, when you unmute yourself, talk really close to the microphone so that you're nice and loud.
Okay, yes, you're right. And hello, everybody. I'm here with baby, and we will just be absorbing tonight listening.
Yes. Can we give a tiny-ish bit of info about the baby?
Yes. So I gave birth on 11/12, and baby's healthy. I am healthy. He came out 7 pounds, 6 ounces, and we'll post a little picture of his little toes, give a little sneak peek of what he's like.
Yeah.
And it's been an
Well,
absolute dream. Being a mom is wonderful, as you know.
yes, as I know. Well, he's the sweetest little, cutest little peanut ever. So just really adorable and just an angel, and I'm ridiculously happy. Okay. All right. Well, Shay, do you want to do our obeisances still?
Yes, I'll do obeisances.
Do some obeisances, and then we will get into it. So
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one must first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Boop, boop, boop.
let's go. Let's go. Hare Krishna. Thank you for
Hare
that,
Krishna.
Shay. Okay, everyone, let's get into it. I've been really dying to see where this is going, so I'm really glad to be here right now reading with you. So, excuse me. So it'll just be me tonight. Shay's gonna pop in if she has a question or comment to make. So, Shay, just pipe up if you have something to say. Okay. Chapter 12, Vṛtrāsura's glorious death. Sukadeva Goswami said, desiring to give up his body, Vṛtrāsura considered death in the battle preferable to victory. O King Parikshit, he vigorously took up his trident and with great force attacked Lord Indra, the king of heaven, just as Kaitaba had forcefully attacked the supreme personality of Godhead when the universe was inundated. Then Vṛtrāsura, the great hero of the demons, whirled his trident, which had points like the flames of the blazing fire at the end of the millennium. With great force and anger, he threw it at Indra, roaring and exclaiming loudly, O sinful one, thus shall I kill you. Flying in the sky, Vṛtrāsura's trident resembled a brilliant meteor. Although the blazing weapon was difficult to look upon, King Indra, unafraid, cut it to pieces with his thunderbolt. Simultaneously, he cut off one of Vṛtrāsura's arms, whoa, which was as thick as the body of Vaisuki, the king of the serpents. Whoa. Although one of his arms was severed from his body, Vṛtrāsura angrily approached King Indra and struck him on the jaw with an iron mace. He also struck the elephant that carried Indra. Thus, Indra dropped the thunderbolt from his hand. The denizens of various planets, like the demigods, demons, Charanas, Siddhas, praised Vṛtrāsura's deeds, but when they observed that Indra was in great danger, they lamented, alas, alas. Okay, so this is a scene. They're watching, like everyone's watching this go down. Okay. Having dropped the thunderbolt from his hand in the presence of his enemy, Indra was practically defeated and was very much ashamed. He dared not pick up his weapon again. Vṛtrāsura, however, encouraged him, saying, "Take up your thunderbolt and kill your enemy. This is not the time to lament your fate." Okay, I just want to bring up at the beginning, Vṛtrāsura talked about he'd rather die in battle than any other way. And I remember that from the last chapter. Do you remember that, Shay? Where he was saying
Yes.
that he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory?
Yep. I do remember that.
So it's like I'm wondering if, first of all, it's not funny, but just to think of him with like his arm chopped off, and
Right.
he's still like coming for him.
Well, he's provoking him, right, to the point of where maybe he kills him.
Yeah, he wants him to, right?
Yep.
Okay, text 7. Vṛtrāsura continued. Oh, Indra, no one is guaranteed of being always victorious, but the original enjoyer, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and he knows everything. Being dependent and being obliged to accept material bodies, belligerent subordinates are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. I love how he puts that. All living beings in all the planets of this universe, including the presiding deities of all the planets, are fully under control of the Lord. They work like birds caught in a net who cannot move independently. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. We've been over this over and over. How about it, Shay? Like we have been
Yes.
over this about
Yeah.
this whole like we think that we are our character that we're in. We think we're doing the things. You know what I mean? We think we can
Yep.
control the universe with our thoughts, even if we wish enough. Or like do you know what I mean? It's nuts when you really, really break it down how actually
Absolutely.
no.
Yeah.
It's just Bhagavan. Not just. Not just Bhagavan. It is Bhagavan. Okay.
Right. Right.
Okay, text 10. O King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman or as an animal made of grass and leaves cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it. All of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the personality of Godhead. No one is independent. The three Purushas, the material nature, the total material nature, the false ego, the five material elements, the material senses, the mind, the intelligence, and consciousness cannot create the material manifestation without the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, it's so interesting, this text, because I was just reading something else, this book called Deep Creativity. Something else I was reading, this podcast, they were talking, oh, it was the telepathy tapes. And they were talking about this idea that creative ideas, or, whether it's like a book or a movie, somebody has a thought or an idea that we claim that like our mind thought it up, but actually it's being dropped in by the universe. It's already existing, and there's like a Gandharva or something that's whispering it in our ear. There's like we're getting it somehow. We're channeling it. We're just the vessel for it. We didn't think of it. We couldn't possibly make it up. And all of those things actually come from the mind of the Godhead. And that's, I think, what Vṛtrāsura is saying. Everything actually comes, and we don't actually do anything. So, on that note, let me chop your head off, Indra. I think he's saying.
Right. But isn't that like that's reassuring, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of reassuring if you think about it, because it means that you don't have to control the entire universe, which, like, thankfully, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Thank the
that
heavens.
sounds exhausting. So, if I could just surrender and trust that the universe has me and I'm just flowing along the timeline and the storyline that I'm supposed to be in,
That sounds
Great.
way better.
It does sound better. Okay, he goes on, text 12. A foolish, senseless person cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although always dependent, he falsely thinks himself the supreme. If one thinks, according to one's previous fruit of actions, one's material body is created by the father and mother, and the same body is annihilated by another agent as another animal is devoured by a tiger, this is not the proper understanding. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself creates and devours the living beings through other living beings. Ah! This is so interesting. Plus, they're in the middle of a battle, and I love how he just stops to give a sermon in the middle. Oh, by the way, and he drops some truth bombs. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. Since everything is dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death. In their effects, represented as happiness and distress, one should maintain oneself in equilibrium without anxiety. Right. It's all just happening. You're
I
just
mean,
here.
that's the Bhagavad Gita, right? It's like the
Yeah.
same in cold and heat, the same in
Same.
death and life. Yep.
Samesies, samesies. Right. Text
Way
15.
easier said than done.
Yeah, right. One who knows that the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are not qualities of the soul, but qualities of material nature, and who knows that the pure soul is simply an observer of the actions and reactions of these qualities, should be understood to be a liberated person. He is not bound by these qualities. Oh, my enemy, just look at me. I've already been defeated, for my weapon and arm have been cut to pieces. You have already overwhelmed me, but nonetheless, with a desire to kill you, I am trying my best to fight. I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your moroseness and continue fighting. Oh, my enemy, consider this battle a gambling match in which our lives are at stakes. The arrows are the dice, and the animals acting as carriers are the game board. No one can understand who will be defeated and who will be victorious. It all depends on providence. Ah, this is so good. Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing the straightforward, instructive words of Vṛtrāsura, King Indra praised him and again took the thunderbolt in his hand. Without bewilderment or duplicity, he then smiled and spoke to Vṛtrāsura as follows. Indra said, O great demon, I see by your discrimination and endurance in devotional service, despite your dangerous position, that you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul, and a friend of everyone. You have surmounted the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, and because of this liberation, you have given up the demonic mentality and have attained the position of an exalted devotee. O Vṛtrāsura, demons are generally conducted by the mode of passion. Therefore, what a great wonder it is that although you are a demon, you have adopted the mentality of a devotee and have fixed your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who is always situated in pure goodness. A person fixed in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the Lord of the highest auspiciousness, swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of the water in small ditches? Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Vṛtrāsura and King Indra spoke about devotional service even on the battlefield, and then, as a matter of duty, they again began fighting. My dear king, both of them were great fighters and were equally powerful. O Maharaja Parikshit, Vṛtrāsura, who was completely able to subdue his enemy, took his iron club, whirled it around, aimed it at Indra, and then threw it at him with his left hand. With his thunderbolt named Satyaparvan. Indra simultaneously cut to pieces Vṛtrāsura's club and his remaining hand. Vṛtrāsura, bleeding profusely, his two arms cut off at their roots, looked very beautiful like a flying mountain whose wings had been cut to pieces by Indra. Vṛtrāsura was very powerful in physical strength and influence. He placed his lower jaw on the ground and his upper jaw in the sky. His mouth became very deep like the sky itself, and his tongue resembled a large serpent. With his fearful, death-like teeth, he seemed to be trying to devour the entire universe. Thus, assuming a gigantic body, the great demon Vṛtrāsura shook even the mountains and began crushing the surface of the earth with his legs as if he were the Himalayas walking about. He came before Indra and swallowed him and his carrier just as a big python might swallow an elephant. Oh my gosh. I'm stunned right now. Shay, did you catch that?
Yeah, I'm processing. That's
Okay, all
a
right. Well, first of
dangerous.
all I could see was the Black Knight from the movie The Monty Python and the Holy Grail when like he's fighting him and he cuts his both arms off and he's like, "I'm still coming for you." Okay,
Oh, I
that's
don't know
you
that.
don't know my references and I'm sorry. Maybe there's a human out there who gets that. It's really funny if you do. Okay. Secondly, he just got both his arms cut off and he just opens his mouth, becomes a giant like
He
mouth.
said, I don't even need my arms.
I don't even need my arms. I'm coming for you, Indra. And he swallows them.
But how is this gonna end? Yeah, keep going.
Okay, no, how? Text 30. When the demigods, along with Brahma, other Prajapatis, and other great saintly persons saw that Indra had been swallowed by the demon, they became very morose. Alas, they lamented. What a calamity! What a calamity! I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm finding this funny, but like, what just happened? They're saying to themselves. The protective armor of Narayan, which Indra possessed, was identical with Narayan himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Protected by that armor and by his own mystic power, King Indra, although swallowed by Vṛtrāsura, did not die within the demon's belly. Oh, he's in there. Okay, he's in there. Like Noah and the whale. That's another reference. Okay. From the Bible. Okay, never
I know
mind.
that one. I know
Yeah.
that one.
Okay. With his thunderbolt, King Indra, who is also extremely powerful, pierced through Vṛtrāsura's abdomen and came out. Sure, he cut himself right out of there. Indra, the killer of the demon Bala, then immediately cut off Vṛtrāsura's head, which was as high as the peak of a mountain. Wow. Okay. He cuts himself off of out of his stomach and cuts his head off. Okay. Okay. You know what? That is a glorious death, Vṛtrāsura. You freaking go. Right? He said he wanted a glorious death. Oh,
And also, isn't it like if you are gonna be killed, you would want it to be by a devotee?
right? The King of Heaven.
Right.
Amazing. 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 Okay. Text 33. Although the thunderbolt revolved around Vṛtrāsura's neck with great speed, separating his head from his body, and it took one complete year. Wow. 360 days, the time in which the sun, moon, and other luminaries to complete a northern and southern journey. Just then, a year later, it took a whole year. Then, at a suitable time for Vṛtrāsura to be killed, his head fell to the ground. Wow.
I wonder if everybody was there for that year. I know that time is
Right.
different.
Right.
Right. So our what we're perceiving as a year probably is not the same as the year that it took for his head to come off.
That's a long
That
time to
does seem like a
watch.
long time.
Okay, that's long.
Yeah.
When Vṛtrāsura was killed, the Gandharvas and Siddhas in the heavenly planets beat kettle drums in jubilation. With Vedic hymns, they celebrated the prowess of Indra, the killer of Vṛtrāsura, praising Indra and showering flowers upon him with great pleasure. O King Parikshit, subduer of enemies, the living spark then came forth from Vṛtrāsura's body and returned home back to Godhead. While the demigods looked on, he entered the transcendental world to become an associate of the Lord Sankarsana. Yes. Leaves the body, goes back up to be a devotee. Beautiful. Wow, that was crazy, kind of. Let's go to another chapter because we got to see still what happens. Chapter 13, King Indra, afflicted by sinful reaction. Indra has like some, I feel like Indra is always like in something. Do you know what I'm saying? He's always like getting himself into something,
It surely seems like that.
right? Okay, chapter 13, Canto 6. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, who are so charitably disposed when Vṛtrāsura was killed, all the presiding deities and everyone else in the three planetary systems was immediately pleased and free from trouble. Everyone, that is, except Indra. It's like, Indra. Therefore, the demigods, the great saintly persons, the inhabitants of Pitraloka and Bhutaloka, the demons, the followers of the demigods, and also Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the demigods subordinate to Indra all returned to their respective homes. While departing, however, no one spoke to Indra. Okay. Well, okay. Maharaja Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O great sage, what was the reason for Indra's unhappiness? I wish to hear about this. When he killed Vṛtrāsura, all the demigods were extremely happy. Why, then, was Indra himself unhappy? Is that the way, is that that thing where you finally get what you want and then you're just like unhappy? It's like unsatisfying for some reason. You're like, oh, that's it? Maybe it's that. Sri
Right.
Sukadeva Goswami answered, when all the great sages and demigods were disturbed by the extraordinary power of Vṛtrāsura, they had assembled to ask Indra to kill him. That's right. Indra, however, being afraid of killing a Brahmin, declined their request. King Indra replied, when I killed Vṛtrāsura, I received extensive sinful reactions, but I was favored by the women, land, trees, and water, and therefore I was able to divide the sin among them. That's right. Do you remember? Thanks, Indra.
Oh,
Right. We got
yes,
a
yes,
chunk of Indra's sin.
yes.
Yeah, thank you. But
I forgot
now,
about
if
that.
right. But now, if I kill Vṛtrāsura, another Brahmin, how shall I free myself from all the sinful reactions? So he's like, wait, I got the karma for that. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing this, the great sages replied to the king Indra, O king of heaven, all good fortune unto you, do not fear. We shall perform an Ashvamedha sacrifice to release you from any sin you may accrue by killing the Brahmin. The rishis continued, O King Indra, by performing an Ashvamedha sacrifice and thereby pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supersoul, Lord Narayan, the Supreme Controller, one can be relieved even of the sinful reactions for killing the entire world, not to speak of killing a demon like Vṛtrāsura. Okay. One who has killed a Brahmin, one who has killed a cow, or one who has killed his father, mother, or spiritual master can be immediately freed from all sinful reactions simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Narayan. Other sinful persons, such as dog eaters and Kandalas, who are less than Sudras, can also be freed this way. But you are a devotee, and we shall help you by performing the great horse sacrifice. If you please Lord Narayan in that way, why should you be afraid? You will be freed even if you kill the entire universe, including the Brahmins, not to speak of killing a disturbing demon like Vṛtrāsura. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, encouraged by the words of the sages, Indra killed Vṛtrāsura, and when he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahma certainly took shelter of Indra. Okay, I feel like that was a little bit of a circular conversation. He was saying, I don't want to do it. I'm gonna accrue the sin this time. And they're like, yeah, it's okay. You should do it. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. Then he does it, and then he does get the sin. But they're like, we'll help you. We'll help you get out of it. Well, you'll get a presidential pardon. You can commit the crime now. I will pardon you later.
Yeah, it did seem like that, didn't it?
Right, right. Text 11. Following the advice of the demigods, King Indra killed Vṛtrāsura, and he suffered because of this sinful killing. Not King Indra. Indra killed Vṛtrāsura, and he suffered because of this sinful killing. Although the other demigods were happy, he could not derive happiness from the killing of Vṛtrāsura. Indra's other good qualities, such as tolerance and opulence, could not help him in his grief. He still had to do it. He still had to do it. And he knew he was killing a devotee, no less. And it's one thing to know that you think you're killing like some terrible, demon, but to find out you're killing a fellow devotee. He didn't like it. Indra saw personified sinful reactions chasing him, appeared like a woman of the lowest class. She seemed very old, and all the limbs of her body trembled. Because she was afflicted with tuberculosis, her body and garments were covered with blood, breathing an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street. She called to Indra, "Wait, wait." Wow. So he has this crazy bloody woman personified as sin following him. O king, Indra first fled into the sky, but there also he saw the woman of personified sin chasing him. This witch followed him wherever he went. At last, he very quickly went to the northeast and entered the Sarovara Lake. Always thinking of how he could be relieved from the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmin, King Indra, invisible to everyone, lived in the lake for 1,000 years in the subtle fibers of the stem of a lotus. The fire god used to bring him his share of all the yajanas, but because the fire god was afraid to enter the water, Indra was practically starving. As long as King Indra lived in the water, wrapped in the stem of the lotus, Nahusa was equipped with the ability to rule the heavenly kingdoms due to his knowledge, austerity, and mystic power. Nahusa, however, blinded and maddened by power and opulence, made undesirable proposals to Indra's wife with the desire to enjoy her. Thus, Nahusa was cursed by a Brahmin and later became a snake. Lots of sketchy behavior going on. Okay, Indra's sins were diminished by the influence of Rudra, the demigod of all directions. Because Indra was protected by the goddess of fortune, Lord Vishnu's wife, who resides in the lotus clusters of Manasa Sarovara Lake, Indra's sins could not affect him. Indra was ultimately relieved of all the reactions of his sinful deeds by strictly worshipping Lord Vishnu. Then he was called back to the heavenly planets by the Brahmins and reinstated in his position. So he had to go sit in a lake for 1,000 years. Okay. O king, when Lord Indra reached the heavenly planets, the saintly Brahmins approached him and properly initiated him into a horse sacrifice meant to please the Supreme Lord. The horse sacrifice performed by the saintly Brahmins relieved Indra of the reactions to all his sins because he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that sacrifice. O king, although he had committed a gravely sinful act, it was nullified at once by that sacrifice, just as fog is vanquished by the brilliant sunrise. King Indra was favored by Marishi and all the other great sages. They performed the sacrifice just according to the rules and regulations, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul, the original person. Thus, Indra regained his exalted position and was again honored by everyone. In this very great narrative, there is a glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. There are statements about the exaltedness of devotional service, and there are descriptions of devotees like Indra and Vṛtrāsura. And there are statements about King Indra's release from sinful life and about his victory in fighting the demons. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful reactions. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. All right. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses. His opulence will increase, and his reputation will become widespread. One will also be relieved of all sinful reactions. He will conquer all his enemies, and the duration of his life will increase. It's like magic.
Whoa.
Because this narration is auspicious in all respects, learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day.
Wow.
Beautiful. That was a
That
beautiful
was
story,
quite this that
actually.
was quite the story.
That really was. That was kind of amazing.
There was quite the build up to that battle scene.
Yeah,
And then for Indra to have to be in a lake for 1,000 years before
right,
all of his sins are essentially erased.
right. I heard Bodhi had a little reaction there. He wanted to say something it sounded like.
Yeah, he did.
He's still listening. He's been listening to this from the beginning.
He's been here for quite a while.
He has. He's heard all this. Okay, how we doing on time? How you feeling? Like, is this a
We
good?
could It seems like a natural stopping point just because it's the end of the story, it seems. What's the next chapter called?
Well, it's called King Chitraketu's Lamentation. In this 14th
Oh.
chapter, Parikshit Maharaja asks his spiritual master, Sukadeva Goswami, how such a demon as Vṛtrāsura could become an exalted devotee. I mean, I could get into that.
I'm kind of interested to hear that myself.
Okay, let's do one more. Let's do one more chapter. Okay, chapter 14. King Chitraketu's Lamentation, text 1. King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahmin, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vṛtrāsura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan? Do tell, do tell. Demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment hardly ever render pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Mukunda. Therefore, how could Vṛtrāsura have become such a great devotee? In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a very few are human beings, and among them, few are interested in following religious principles. O best of the Brahmins, Sukadeva Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, only a few desire liberation from the material world. Among many thousands who desire liberation, one may actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife, and children. And among many thousands of such liberated persons, one who can understand the true meaning of liberation is very rare. I mean, wow, yeah. O great sage, many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation. One may be a devotee of Lord Narayan or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. A lot of purport. Mhm. Okay, text
The
6.
Maya is deep down here.
Yeah, right. It's real deep. Vṛtrāsura was situated in the blazing fire of battle and was an infamous, sinful demon, always engaged in giving troubles and anxiety to others. How could such a demon become so greatly Krishna conscious? My dear Lord Sukadeva Goswami, although Vṛtrāsura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? The contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, after hearing Maharaja Parikshit's very intelligent question, Sukadeva Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard from the mouths of Vasudeva, Narada, and Devala. Please listen with attention. O King Parikshit, in the province of Surasena, there was a king named Chitraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities for life. This Chitraketu had 10 million wives, but although he was capable of producing children, he did not receive a child from any of them. By chance, all of the wives were barren. Wow. Chitraketu, the husband of these millions of wives, was endowed with a beautiful form, magnanimity, and youth. He was born in a high family. He had a complete education. He was wealthy and opulent. Nevertheless, in spite of being endowed with all these great assets, he was full of anxiety because he did not have a son. His queens all had beautiful faces and attractive eyes, and neither his opulences, his hundreds and thousands of queens, nor the lands of which he was the supreme proprietor were sources of happiness for him. Once upon a time, when the powerful sage named Angira was traveling all over the universe without engagement, by his sweet will he came to the palace of King Chitraketu. Chitraketu immediately stood up from his throne and offered him worship. He offered drinking water and edibles, in this way performed his duty as a host to the great guest. When the rishi was seated very comfortably, the king, restraining his mind and senses, sat on the ground at the side of the rishi's feet. O King Parikshit, when Chitraketu bent low in humility, was seated at the lotus feet of the great sage, the sage congratulated him for his humility and hospitality. The sage addressed him in the following words. The great sage Angira said, My dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and the paraphernalia are well. When the seven properties of material nature, the total material energy, the ego, and the five objects of sense gratification are in proper order, the living entity within the material elements is happy. Without these seven elements, one cannot exist. Similarly, a king is always protected by seven elements: his instructor, his ministers, his kingdom, his fort, his treasury, his royal order, and his friends. O king, O Lord of humanity, when a king directly depends upon his associates and follows their instructions, he is happy. Similarly, when his associates offer their gifts and activities to the king and follow his orders, they are also happy. O king, are your wives, citizens, secretaries, and servants, and the merchants who sell spices and oil under your control? Are you also in full control of ministers, the inhabitants of your palace, your provincial governors, your sons, and your other dependents? If the king's mind is fully controlled, all his family members and governmental officers are subordinate to him. His provincial governors present taxes on time without resistance, and what to speak of lesser servants? O King Chitraketu, I can observe that your mind is not pleased. You seem not to have achieved your desired goal. Is this because of you yourself, or has it been caused by others? Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, although the great sage Angira knew everything, he inquired from the king in this way. Thus, King Chitraketu, desiring a son, bent low in great humility and spoke to the great sage as follows. King Chitraketu said, O great Lord Angira, because of austerity, knowledge, and transcendental samadhi, you are freed from all the reactions of sinful life. Therefore, as a perfect yogi, you can understand everything external and internal regarding embodied conditioned souls like us. Oh, great soul, you are aware of everything, yet you are asking me why I am full of anxiety. Therefore, in response to your order, let me disclose the cause. As a person aggrieved by hunger and thirst is not pleased by the external gratification of flower garlands or sandalwood pulp, I am not pleased with my empire, opulence, or possessions, which are desirable even for great demigods, because I have no son. Therefore, O great sage, please save me and my forefathers who are descending to the darkness of hell because I have no progeny. Kindly do something so that I may have a son to deliver us from hellish conditions. In response to the request of Maharaja Chitraketu, Angira Rishi, who was born of Lord Brahma's mind, was very merciful toward him. Because the sage was greatly powerful personality, he performed a sacrifice by offering oblations of sweet rice to Tvasta. O Parikshit Maharaja, best of the Brahmins, best of the Bharatas, sorry. The remnants of the food offered in the yajna were given by the great sage Angira to the first and most perfect among Chitraketu's millions of queens, whose name was Krita Duty. Therefore, the great sage told the king, O great king, now you will have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation and lamentation. The sage then left without waiting for Chitraketu's response. There's a nice prophecy he drops on the way out. Both jubilation and lamentation. Okay, text 30. After receiving, no, as Kritika Devi, after receiving the semen from Lord Shiva from Agni, conceived a child named Kartikeya. Oh, okay. Kritaduti, having received semen from Chitraketu, became pregnant after eating remnants of food from the yajna performed by Angira. Okay. It was like an example. Okay. Sorry, it took me a second. So basically, she receives, after receiving semen from Chitraketu, became pregnant after eating remnants of the food. Okay, so basically, she eats the food, and then now they're going to have a son. After receiving semen from Maharaja Chitraketu, the king of Surasena, Queen Kritya Duty, sorry, developed in her pregnancy. O King Parikshit, just as the moon develops during birth fortnight. Therefore, in due course of time, a son was born to the king. Hearing news of this, all the inhabitants of the state of Surasana were extremely pleased. Sorry if that sounded choppy, everyone. How you doing over there, Shay? Are you with me? Are you still with me?
I'm following.
You're following along. Okay, so they have a
Yep.
son.
Yep.
King Chitraketu was especially pleased. After purifying himself by bathing and decorating himself with ornaments, he engaged learned Brahmins in offering benedictions to the child and performing the birth ceremony. Unto the Brahmins who took part in the ritualistic ceremony, the king gave charity of gold, silver, garments, ornaments, villages, horses, and elephants, as well as 60 cores of cows, which is 600 million cows. Wow. As a cloud indiscriminately pours water on the earth, the beneficent King Chitraketu, to increase the reputation, opulence, and longevity of his son, distributed like rainfall all desirable things to everyone. When a poor man gets some money after great difficulty, his affection for the money increases daily. Similarly, when King Chitraketu, after great difficulty, received a son, his affection for the son increased day after day. The mother's attraction and attention to the son, like that of the child's father, excessively increased. The other wives, seeing his son, were very much agitated, as if by high fevers, with a desire to have sons. Sure, the other wives are like, I want a son too. As King Chitraketu fostered his son very carefully, his affection for his queen increased, but gradually he lost affection for the other wives, who had no sons. Sure. The other queens were extremely unhappy due to their being sonless. Because of the king's negligence toward them, they condemned themselves in envy and lamented. A wife who has no sons is neglected at home by her husband and dishonored by her co-wives, exactly like a maidservant. Certainly, such a woman is condemned in every respect because of her sinful life. Even maidservants who are constantly engaged in rendering service to the husband are honored by the husband, and thus they have nothing for which to lament. Our position, however, is that we are maidservants of the maidservant. Therefore, we are most unfortunate. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, being neglected by their husband and seeing Ketyadyuti's opulence in possessing a son, the co-wives always burned in envy, which became extremely strong. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence. That's such a good line. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence. That's what
Isn't
happened.
that the truth? Isn't that the
Yes,
truth?
right. Being extremely hard-hearted and unable to tolerate the king's neglect, they finally administered poison to the son. I was like, no, something's gonna happen.
No.
No. Unaware of the poison administered by her co-wives, the queen walked within the house, thinking that her son was sleeping deeply. She did not understand that he was dead. Thinking that her child had been sleeping for a long time, Queen Krita was certainly very intelligent, ordered the nurse, "My dear friend, please bring my son here." When the maidservant approached the child, who was lying down, she saw that his eyes were turned upward. There were no signs of life. All his senses having stopped, she could understand the child was dead. Seeing this, she immediately cried, "Now I am doomed," and fell to the ground. In great agitation, the maidservant struck her breast with both hands and cried loudly in regretful words. Hearing the loud voice, the queen immediately came, and when she approached her son, she saw that he was suddenly dead. In great lamentation, her hair and dress in disarray, the queen fell to the ground unconscious. O King Parikshit, hearing the loud crying, all the inhabitants of the palace came, both men and women. Being equally aggrieved, they also began to cry. The queens who had administered the poison also cried pretentiously, knowing full well their offense. When King Chitraketu heard of his son's death from unknown causes, he became almost blind. Because of his great affection for his son, his lamentation grew like a blazing fire, and as he went to see the dead child, he kept slipping and falling on the ground. Surrounded by his ministers and their other officers and the learned Brahmins present, the king approached and fell unconscious at the child's feet, his hair and dress scattered. When the king, breathing heavily, regained consciousness, his eyes were tearful, and he could not speak. When the queen saw that her husband, King Chitraketu, merged in great lamentation and saw the dead child, who was the only son in the family, she lamented in various ways. This increased the pain in the cores of the hearts of all the inhabitants of the palace, the ministers, and all the Brahmins. The garland of flowers decorating the queen's head fell, and her hair scattered. Falling tears melted on her eyes and moistened her breast, which were covered with curcuma powder. As she lamented the loss of her son, her loud crying resembled the sweet sound of a curari bird. Alas, O Providence, O Creator, you are certainly inexperienced in creation, for during the lifetime of a father you have caused the death of his son, thus acting in opposite to your creative laws. If you are determined to contradict these laws, you are certainly the enemy of living entities and are never merciful. My lord, you may say that there is no law that a father must die in the lifetime of his son, and that a son must be born in the lifetime of his father, since everyone lives and dies according to his own fruitive activity. However, if fruitive activity is so strong that birth and death depend upon it, there is no need of a controller or God. Again, if you say that a controller is needed because the material energy does not have the power to act, one may answer that if the bonds of affection you have created are disturbed by fruit of action, no one will raise children with affection. Instead, everyone will cruelly neglect his children. Since you have cut the bonds of affection that compel a parent to raise his child, you appear inexperienced and unintelligent. She's calling God a dummy right now. She's angry, right? My dear son, I am helpless and very much aggrieved. You should not give up my company. Just look at your lamenting father. We are helpless because without a son, we shall have to suffer the distress of going to the darkest hellish regions. You are the only hope by which we can get out of these dark regions. Therefore, I request you not to go any further with the merciless Yama. My dear son, you have slept a long time. Now please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. Since you must be very hungry, please get up and suck my breast and dissipate our lamentation. My dear son, I am certainly most unfortunate, for I can no longer see your mild smiling. You have closed your eyes forever. I therefore conclude that you have been taken from this planet to another, from which you will not return. My dear son, I can no longer hear your pleasing voice. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued. And accompanied by his wife, who was thus lamenting for his dead son, King Chitraketu began crying loudly with an open mouth, being greatly aggrieved. As the king and queen lamented, all their male and female followers joined them in crying. Because of the sudden accident, all the citizens of the kingdom were almost unconscious. When the great sage Angira understood that the king was almost dead in an ocean of lamentation, he went there with Narada Rishi. Okay. Well, we can't leave it there, right? Obviously. He's going to get Narada. So let's just see.
Yeah, yeah.
Text one. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, while King Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son, the two great sages, Narada and Angira, instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. All right, let's lay some truth down. O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you, and what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the forces of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. When the seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is not fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. O King, both you and we, your advisors, wives, and ministers, as well as everything moving and not moving throughout the entire cosmos at this time, are in a temporary situation. Before our birth, this situation did not exist, and after our death, it will no longer exist. Therefore, our situation is now temporary. Although this is not false. Okay, thank you for adding that in, Narada. This is real, but this is temporary. Text 6. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master and proprietor of everything, is certainly not interested in the temporary cosmic manifestation. Nevertheless, just as a boy at the beach creates something in which he is not interested, the Lord, keeping everything under his control, causes creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He creates by engaging a father to beget a son. He maintains by engaging a government or king to see the public's welfare, and he annihilates through agents for killing, such as snakes. The agents for creation, maintenance, and annihilation have no independent potency, but because of the spell of the illusory energy, one thinks himself the creator, maintainer, and annihilator. It's that baby deer. It's that baby deer. Okay. As from one seed, another seed is generated, O king. So from one body, the body of the father, through another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. Divisions of generalization and specification, such as nationality and individuality, are the imaginations of persons who are not advanced in knowledge. You know what? I love that. I love that. I love that
That
so
makes
much.
great sense. That makes great sense to
We
me.
make all that up. We divide ourselves
Yep.
up and all of the things. Okay. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued. Thus, enlightened by the instructions of Narada and Ingera, King Chitraketu became hopeful with knowledge. Wiping his shriveled face with his hand, the king began to speak. King Chitraketu said, you have both come here dressed like avadutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities, but I see that of all men, you are the most elevated in awareness. You know everything as it is. Therefore, you are the greatest of all great personalities. Brahmins who are exalted to the position of Vaishnavas, the most dear servants of Krishna, sometimes dress like madmen. just to benefit materialists like us who are always attached to sense gratification, and just to dissipate our ignorance. These Vaishnavas wander on the surface of the globe according to their desire. O great souls, I have heard that among the great and perfect persons wandering the surface of the earth to instruct knowledge to people covered by ignorance are, and then it literally lists one, two, three, probably like 40 people. I'm not going to say all the names. A bunch of sages. You must certainly be among them, he says. Because you are great personalities, you can give me real knowledge. I am as foolish as a village animal, like a pig or a dog, because I am merged in the darkness of ignorance. Therefore, please ignite the torch of knowledge to save me. Angira said, My dear king, when you desired to have a son, I approached you. Indeed, I am the same Angira Rishi who gave you this son. As for this Rishi, he is the great sage Narada, the direct son of Lord Brahma. My dear king, you are an advanced devotee to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be absorbed in lamentation for the loss of something material is unsuitable for a person like you. Therefore, we have both come to relieve you from this false lamentation, which is due to your being merged in the darkness of ignorance. For those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, to be affected by material loss and gain is not at all desirable. When I first came to your home, I could have given you the supreme transcendental knowledge, but when I saw that your mind was absorbed in material things, I gave you only a son who caused you jubilation and lamentation. Do you remember that little prophecy he dropped?
Yeah.
Yep. My dear king, now we are actually experiencing the misery of a person who has sons and daughters. O king, owner of the state of Surasana, one's wife, his house, the opulence of his kingdom, and his various other opulences and objects of sense perception are all the same in that they are temporary. One's kingdom, military power, treasury, servants, ministers, friends, and relatives are all causes of fear, illusion, lamentation, and distress. They are like a Gandharva Nagara, a non existent palace that one imagines to exist in the forest. Because they are impermanent, they are no better than illusions, dreams, and mental concoctions. These visible objects, like wife, children, and property, are like dreams and mental concoctions. Actually, what we see has no permanent existence. It is sometimes seen and sometimes not. Only because of our past actions do we create such mental concoctions. And because of these concoctions, we perform further activities. Yep. They explained this way back, I think a couple books ago. Narada was talking about how we make these little stories up about ourselves. We make stories up with our mind and we go live it out because we want to, right? Because we want to. Text 25. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of the physical elements, the five senses for gathering knowledge, and the five senses of action, along with the mind. Although the mind of the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations, therefore, this body is a source of all miseries. Therefore, O King Chitraketu, carefully consider the position of the Atma. In other words, try to understand who you are, whether body, mind, or soul. Consider where you have come from and where you're going after giving up the body, and why you are under the control of material lamentation. Try to understand your real position in this way, and then you'll be able to give up your unnecessary attachment. You will also be able to give up the belief that this material world or anything not directly in touch with the service to Krishna is eternal. Thus, you will obtain peace. The great sage Narada continued, My dear king, attentively receive from me a mantra which is most auspicious. After accepting it from me in 7 nights, you will be able to see the Lord face to face. My dear king, in former days, Lord Shiva and other demigods took shelter of the lotus feet of Sankarsana. Thus, they immediately got free from the illusion of duality and achieved unequaled and unsurpassed glories in spiritual life. You will very soon attain that very same position. And that is the end of chapter 15. And in chapter 16, King Chitraketu will meet the Supreme Lord, and we're gonna hold it right there till next week.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. That was good. That was really good.
That was so good. It's always so
It's
good.
always so good. It's always so good. Okay, well, hopefully
Oh
we
my
will
goodness.
not be taking any more breaks for a little bit. And we'll be seeing Shay's face back again here pretty soon as well.
Yes, you will.
It's just hard to
Thank you
manage a
for
baby,
reading.
right? And read a book at the same time. So,
Right.
um, well, that was good. Thanks so much for listening and reading along with us, dear friends. Love and
Yeah.
blessings to you, and love and blessings to you, Shay, and little baby Bodhi.
Likewise. And thank you everybody for your well wishes and prayers. I appreciate it.
All right. See you next week, everyone. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.